Good afternoon. My name is Jason Leibowitz. I'm the VP of Sales at LiveWorld, and we thank you for attending our webinar on creating program where social media is the service differentiator, and we'll get into that a little bit, including reviewing a case study. We're here to talk about Rite Aid, and I'm going to now introduce Pam Flores, who is one of our account services folks, who actually oversees the Rite Aid team and program. And I'm going to have her ease on in, talk about the program a little bit, and then also bring in our other panelists as well. So thank you for coming.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason, and welcome to everybody. I'm really excited to dive into this topic. I was lucky enough to work with the two panelists on the call in the trenches to build a social customer support program for Rite Aid that we launched about a year before the pandemic hit. The idea that was to build a scalable program with highly trained customer service representatives that could efficiently and effectively quickly get to customers that were having problems and help them solve them via social, which you could see then was becoming the venue of choice for customers to reach out to brands. Then the pandemic hit. And once that happened, social became even more important, and our program was tested, and we had to pivot in large ways to enhance and expand the program so that we could really truly help customers. It's a big trend right now, and we're so thrilled to sort of be on the cutting edge of it. So I'm going to stop there and go ahead and introduce our panelists, and then we'll dive into the Q&A questions between our groups. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Nicole Boharad. Nicole was really the driving force behind the program and was our client at the time. She's currently the customer experience retail advisor at SAP. Nicole, why don't you go ahead and tell folks a little bit more about your role?
Absolutely. Great to be here. Yes, I am Nicole Boharad, and I am a retail and entertainment customer experience advisory leader. I'm based in North America at SAP, and I help major brands improve their customer lifetime value by assessing their maturity and solving for their challenges across omni-channel commerce, customer data, customer support and engagement, which is what we're talking about today, marketing, digital media, and personalization.
Awesome. Thanks, Nicole. And so next up is my colleague at LiveWorld, Ashley Hayward. Ashley was instrumental in many ways in building the program and continues to lead it at LiveWorld. Ashley, you want to tell a little bit about your role?
Absolutely, and I'm really excited to be a part of this panel. So like Pam said, my name is Ashley Hayward. I'm a senior manager of client services for LiveWorld, and I manage the day-to-day activity on the program. So that's the moderation response, our agent teams, strategy, back-end support, basically anything that the program needs to run and grow and be successful.
Perfect. So let's get into it. Ashley, why don't you start by just giving the folks on the call an idea of the program that we put into place at Rite Aid?
Absolutely.
And this slide talks to that.
Yeah, so this kind of gives you just a very high level view of the program. So we have between 7 and 10 agents at any given time. Our expectation for response during shift hours is 15 minutes. And we have about 8 hours of social moderation per day with another 4 hours dedicated to reviews. The original program was very small, very small. And Rite Aid wanted to really grow the program and make it a main channel for customers to contact us, to give their feedback, to let us know that they needed help. So LiveWorld was brought in, and the building of the program began. So now we cover basically every major social channel. So that includes Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Basically, if it's out there, you name it, we moderate it. We also do reviews, so Facebook, Google My Business, and Yelp. And we also do My Pharmacy feedback as well.
Perfect. And I'd add that it's a highly engaging program in that we're not tied to very canned responses. We have the flexibility and the ability to really, truly talk to customers on social and create responses that go a long way in helping solve problems.
Absolutely. So the social touch is the big part of the program. So we want to build relationships with customers and have fun with them, as well as help them with any issues that they're encountering. We're kind of the first line for Rite Aid. So if there's an issue, if there's a tech issue with the website, if there's an issue with an advertisement, we are the ones who catch that and bubble that up through the process that we've created. And we have a certain amount of structure to certain responses, but we like to make the customer understand that there's a human behind the computer, and that we care about them, and that we want them to love Rite Aid and have a great neighborhood pharmacy that they can engage with.
Perfect. So Nicole, can you talk a little bit, because you were the one that really brought LiveWorld in, what led you to deciding that an external partner was the right way to go?
Sure. So Ashley talked about some of the challenges with really having those hours be significant when customers are online. And I think one of the key things for us, especially working at Rite Aid, is a pharmacy. And there was a significant risk involved in, anything from somebody getting a prescription that may have, some question about it, or a store being open for their health needs. There were a lot of areas of risk that don't necessarily happen during the workday. And as you know, the stores are both East Coast and West Coast. And really, originally, we only had East Coast hours for this process. And coupled with the risk and people coming from the West Coast and asking questions during what the East Coast had was off hours, is really something that we kept seeing in the data that we were missing. We knew there were volumes of individuals and customers coming in at off hours with some potentially risky or situations that could turn into a risk that we needed to handle immediately. And that was one of the first things that I noticed where we needed additional help and support. And I've led many teams in this space, and it's not always the simplest scenario to try to get individuals internally, especially on off hours, to be managing this. Not only that, to be able to escalate it internally at off hours. So that was the first sign. The second sign is that we really needed help, as I had mentioned, with the pharmacy side and the healthcare expertise. And I wanted to look for obviously internal, I compared versus an external partner, but when I was looking for external partners, compared the expertise in healthcare and where I could find that, because the biggest benefit we had is what other companies have done in these situations elsewhere and in the past. And in order to get a sense of what were best practices, I really wanted to make sure that we had a partner that we could reach out to, that other situations have happened and how they've handled that. So that was point number two. And then finally, I wanted to look for, again, a best practice in process, right? And we'll get into a little later the playbook process and the guidelines. But with such a small team, we really didn't have processes, procedures, and guidelines in place that everyone could follow, that everyone knew exactly what we should do at any given moment with any situation on any channel. And I knew that a partner like LiveWorld would have that and know how to escalate and triage and also upsell, for example, different customer interests, questions, and concerns. And that's where I really looked at LiveWorld and the expertise that you guys had and the clients and customers you've worked with, as well as the flexibility that you had in managing major brands, community engagement programs. That allowed me to focus my efforts on what I needed to get done in my role and have you guys come in as a partner.
Awesome, thank you. And that was the perfect segue to the next area that I wanted to go into a little bit. The program certainly would not have been or continue to be as successful if the foundation wasn't properly built. Ashley, can you talk a little bit about the elements? And Nicole talked a little bit about the playbook and that sort of thing. What were some of the key elements that we started with to launch the program and we continue to nurture and enhance as we move forward?
Yeah, I think one of the key things that we needed to focus on when we were creating the playbook and in turn all of our processes and structures and everything was that it needed to be a living document. It needed to be flexible. We needed to be able to pivot very quickly. We needed to be able to scale up and down as needed, and make sure that we had our internal partners with Rite Aid on board, that everyone understood what social was, what the mission with social was. We had clear lines of communication, and that we also understood that, especially with pharma, with a pharma retail company, the different situations that could arise, the very varied situations, we needed to be able to build processes that could accommodate the wildest situations down to the most mundane situations. So our playbook was constantly growing and evolving and changing as the program did. And in turn, we had a very fluid way of making sure that all of our partners understood the new processes and understood the new kind of the lay of the land, essentially, every time there was a change. And it really came into focus with COVID. We were able, I'm so grateful to everyone who was involved in that process of creating that, because that's what really allowed us to go into all of the issues and learnings of COVID very strongly, and have the support that we needed.
Awesome. Anything you'd add to the foundational part, Nicole?
Sure. It really ties in a lot with what happens when you integrate an external team, right? I think one of the eye-opening things is you have to really think about, to what level do you want that integration? Sometimes companies say, well, we're going to handle all the internal questions, and our agency and our support is going to handle, these brand related questions or what have you. But we knew off the bat that we needed help across everything, as if LiveWorld, and they are embedded as internal employees of our company. And so we needed to have that mindset, but yet figure out where the guardrails were that actually could and couldn't be crossed. And what I mean by that is, just sitting down with our IT team and saying, okay, what security issues would we have if we gave an external team access to our systems? What systems will you allow them to access? Do they have to use company laptops? Do they get access to some systems and not others? Obviously, SaaS, software as a service type systems, such as like SAP and Sprinkler and things like that. Those would be types of systems that are fairly accessible, with the right login, but things like a loyalty program system or a backend commerce system, or even the email system and things like that, really taking a close pros and cons look at who should have access to what. And when LiveWorld didn't have access to something, what was going to happen? How are they going to escalate it? Who are they going to escalate it to so that somebody internally at Rite Aid could handle that? All those different types of roles and responsibilities, and sort of almost like a RACI model, and also being able to understand who was going to handle cases within sort of a customer service situation and escalating those cases to stores. Those were all things that we had to really wade through and figure out what was the best scenario to get not only the customer's instance resolved quickly, but also make sure that we are being compliant within the company.
And I'll also jump in here. There was also that when we were training our agents and understanding what they were going to handle and how they were going to handle it, what were they personally going to be able to address, what would they need to escalate, and to whom, the case creation. I think that was also really vital, because our agents are very comprehensively trained. They are trained in all manner of the business, and not only because there's some things that they just aren't allowed to handle, certain pharmacy issues, for instance, but they understand our customers so well through this training and through their experience that they're able to identify potential crisis situations well before they happen, or potential issues with programs or what have you. They're able to really act autonomously and identify things for us and help customers in a way that if their scope was so narrow, they really wouldn't be able to. So Rite Aid was really good about letting us know that they wanted a really well-rounded agent on this program, and allowed us the time and the ability to train them properly so that they could live up to that service.
Yep. And I think, Go ahead, Nicole.
No, I was going to say, I think that two things that we'll probably get into are, as part of that training, is the library, right, of responses and the tagging structure. So I think if you're going, in that direction, I think that would be great to talk about.
Yep. And this program is so broad and it's a truly an omni-channel program that covers so many different areas. I have to say that a lot of what we built with Rite Aid has become some best practices that we've leveraged with other types of firms that we do work with, like financial services companies and some hospitals and that sort of thing. So we have the foundation built across the board, but we were able to explore new areas with this, which has been wonderful. So getting into a little bit more of the case study, Ashley, why don't you talk a little bit about what happened when the pandemic hit? What was the impact on our team and on channels, that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously everyone was hearing about it and dealing with it in their own lives. And as far as social, what we saw was, I mean, if you're talking from like March 2019 to like say August 2020, our inbound went up 62%. It was a very quick ramp up. And I mean, when you are talking about those sorts of issues and you're having to really, I think the biggest thing was we suddenly had to breach the divide between social and the brick and mortar stores a lot more quickly, and in a way that was not only making sure any issues were addressed, because our cases went up in that same time period 57%. But we also needed to address the emotional component, which is people were confused. There was a lot of information going around. They were, there was an emotional component to it that is different than any other sort of situation that I think we'd ever encountered before. And you needed to balance making sure that customers had correct factual information and not misinformation, that they had all of their issues were able to be addressed and taken care of, that we were involving internal teams so that new processes could be built, things could be expedited. But then also making sure in amongst all that, that there's a kindness and an understanding in the way that we were addressing customers that I think really made all the difference when you look back at those conversations and the way people said, this is the best way that I've had to get the information that I need or the help that I need. I've called, I've gone into stores, but actually social was the quickest, the easiest, and the best way that I've had communication. So that really meant a lot to our team.
Yep, and I pulled up a couple of just examples of problems that we've solved that were solved during COVID on social, and some of the call outs that we had for customers. So Nicole, Ashley and I were on the Live World side really digging in and pivoting the program and getting everyone on board with everything that was new. You were on the inside. Can you talk a little bit about how social actually drove corporate strategy during this time?
Yes. So this is a great transition here, because as you can tell with this image, it wasn't just getting stuff in store. It was, supply chain backups and shipping backups, and people wanting earlier hours in the store, people concerned about other people being in the store with them, all sorts of stuff. And so what was really, really fascinating is that we started to get that 62% ramp up, as Ashley mentioned, and we started to notice the entire shift of customer and community conversation go towards this particular topic and the fear and concerns that they had, and really the scrambling that customers were doing. So what we decided was were a couple things. One, I had mentioned the library, and I had mentioned the tagging. And so once we started realizing that we had set up this tagging structure that really identified every type of issue and concern and positive comment that could come in to us from customers on various channels about the pharmacy, about shopping at retail, that had completely switched to an entirely different set of topics. And we did not have a tagging structure set up for those topics. And what I mean by that is we aligned tags both within our customer service platform as well as in our social media platform to be symbiotic, so that anytime somebody was a customer who came into our customer service platform, they were identified in our CRM system, but they were also identified as the same person on social media. So we were able to integrate accounts together with the same tagging structure so that no matter where they came in, whether it was chat, phone, email, social, et cetera, we were able to apply the same intelligence and insights and readouts about that person's concern and couple those together with the same concerns other people were having so that we could understand the true volume of each one of these issues. So for example, if the elderly people had, people were reaching out about their parents and their elderly parents didn't want to go into the store at a certain time. So could we create special hours for them? That was one issue. Another issue was were customers asking when COVID vaccines were going to be approved for their age group. Another issue was when are they going to get their COVID-19 testing results? So all of these questions became an entire different set of tags that we set up specifically because we knew if we used our old tagging system, it wasn't going to reveal the insights that we needed to go to the next part of this, which was really reporting. And the reporting became so critical. Our corporate leadership actually relied on us every single day to report to them on the landscape of what was happening. And that was because the speed of what we were doing was even faster than our web metrics. So to have somebody go in, for example, and look at web metrics is all well and good, but it didn't tell the story of what was happening on sort of the front line and what people were thinking, what they were concerned about, and also how fast things were happening, right? So to be able to kind of look at web metrics, perhaps, 12 hours later or 8 hours later wasn't enough for us to actually give the pulse of what was happening every single minute in regards to people's concerns. So we were able to develop a reporting structure and a format that informed our corporate leadership of the issues in the various departments, whether that be retail, pharmacy, customer care, sort of pharmacy agents, et cetera, different topics, supply chain and that sort of thing, even security. So those things really, really helped in terms of serving up not only what was important, but how important certain topics were over others and what should take priority. Mm-hmm. And then they were able to use that information to help solve those particular issues. Some people were concerned about questioning whether there were prices that were different. Some people were asking about why their store was closed and things like that. And we were able to not only get that at a broad brand level and get messaging out that covered across all stores, but also at the specific store level on a local basis to those store managers to make sure that store's community was comfortable going into the store and getting their questions answered. And then finally, at a corporate level, we were responding to things both internally and externally, but on a customer to customer level, we also wanted to make sure we were all aligned. And that had, our corporate leadership wanted to make sure we were putting out the right responses that made people feel well. So we had designed a response library that we had approved with our leadership in different departments that was, again, completely changed from what our normal responses are to various different topics. And that had to be vetted because every single response was very specific in terms of the healthcare information that we were providing and the specifics that we were providing to avoid the confusion of the community, right? The last thing we wanted to do was cause more confusion. We wanted to provide clarity and comfort to the community that we were able to solve their problems. And so having that response library, especially with an external partner in LiveWorld, and having them make sure they knew where to go for the right responses was definitely important.
Awesome.
Well, and I'll say social really came into its own for this because if you think about what was going on at that time, stores were kind of overwhelmed, while at the same time you're supposed to be, cutting down the amount of people in the store. Stores were expected to give vaccinations, do their normal work, also help out like cleaning the store. I mean, they were really overwhelmed and weren't able to answer the phones as much and help customers kind of one-on-one as much. So when customers needed help, they couldn't really go into the store as much. And then when they tried to call customer care, they were also being overwhelmed on the phone. And it's the same thing with the email team. So social became a really quick way for customers to get an answer, to be acknowledged and to receive help in a way that I don't think that social had ever really been used by people in the pharmacy space before, customers in the pharmacy space before. And when they saw that they got a quick turnaround, we became the go-to place for them. And that really is borne out. We still have people who have contacted us that, first started during the pandemic and now reach out to us whenever they need something, as opposed to using more traditional channels.
Perfect. Yeah, we certainly were living at the speed of social. And I think the whole point of what we're talking about is how social is become really the main area that or the emerging area where people are coming to get problems solved. And we were sort of in it at the beginning. Nicole sent me an article not long ago that McKinsey and Company had written on this very topic. And her comment to me was that this could have been written, that this case study could have been written about the program we built. So with that said, Ashley, will you talk just a little bit about what the process is that we use to resolve these problems, how we case things? Again, it's another program that's very well thought out and built out, but just touch a little bit about how we work from our team all the way into the various teams at Rite Aid to get answers and solve issues.
Sure. We have, like I said, a very structured yet flexible program. So if there is a concern that a customer has that we're able to address in the moment, maybe a question, they just need something, they're not quite sure where to go to find the right information, we'll help them in the moment. If it's something that is, for instance, my pharmacist was rude, and it's a complaint that needs to be addressed by a leader, this customer requires follow-up, we will gather their information, understand the situation, empathize with them, make sure that they understand that what the process is going forward. Because I find if they understand the why, they're much more willing to allow you to try to help them. So we will then create a case. The case, dependent on the case category that we choose, will determine which level of leadership the case will go to. And we also have store numbers. So we will identify the store, enter in the store number, and it will go to the leader at that store or that leadership structure. And then the leader has approximately 24 to 48 business hours to respond to the customer, allowing them time to, obviously, especially with pharmacy situations, they need to do research, make sure they have the answers before they contact the customer. And then we have that case open and available. So if a customer has actually called customer care and they've already opened a case, we will add to the case notes because we can see that. We have the information if a customer contacts us in any other way, not just social. And then we also sometimes identify issues that need to be escalated internally within corporate. So we will also do that. Like, we can create a case for it, but then some issues need to be expedited or need to go to a specific department. And we will handle those as well. We will communicate with those leaders and make sure that we get that to the right person. We also are able, through customers coming to us to complain, able to identify trends or things that might be emerging that Rite Aid might want to keep an eye on, specific articles that we will escalate. So basically, we have a good catch-all for any type of issue that might come up. We have good relationships within Rite Aid internally to be able to make sure that if we need a new response for a new issue, because you never underestimate what the public will come to you with. There's always a topic or question that you just haven't ever heard before, that we have a way to address it as quickly as possible, because to us, we want the right information and the right response, but we also need to do it in a timely manner and to communicate with the customer at all times to let them know we are still looking into this, you have not been forgotten, and make sure that they understand that we hear them and that we think what they have to say is important, because I think that's half the battle when you're talking to customers, is making them feel heard and making them feel prioritized.
Perfect. And one thing that you talked about that I'd like to see if Nicole can expand on for us is the whole idea of customer case notes. Clearly, as social becomes more and more the avenue for folks to communicate, having information and data is going to become more and more important to being effective here. Nicole, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I think it goes very well with what Ashley was talking about. So once you can start adding to a customer's profile in, say, either a social servicing software or starting in a customer service contact software. As long as those two are linked, which I know we were one of the first retailers to do that. As long as those two are linked, you get a much more clear 360 view of what's happening with the customer, and you can understand, are they a member, are they not a loyalty member, what have they been concerned about in the past, both positive and negative situations. So for example, we had COVID testing sites roll out every week. They were changing and being updated, and there were people coming and really concerned that they weren't going to be able to find an appointment at a place that was, say, 30 minutes away. So they would ask us, what when is my store going to come online with COVID testing? And so we are able to put them in a segment, for example, and tag them, if you will, put them in a segment that says, these individuals are waiting for specific locations to come out with their COVID testing. Please, let's make sure that we have some sort of automation or refer to them as soon as we get an update to the new location so that we can reach back out to them and they can schedule their testing appointment, right? So there were things that you can use data on that build up into a larger group of individuals that can belong to a segment that you can then re-engage them with. I know that during this time as well, the entire Rite Aid brand was rebranding and had a lot of new merchandise in the holistic space. And as you can imagine, we had a significant uptick in volume and questions about holistic health, right? So a lot of individuals not only were getting their vaccines and testing, but they also wanted to buy more vitamin D and more vitamin C and that sort of thing. And there were definitely a group of individuals that were holistically focused on their health. And to be able to put them in a segment that said, okay, the next time we're doing a sort of COVID preventative health related campaign where we are talking about supplements and things that can keep you healthy, these individuals could be purported into a marketing automation system after we sort of integrate that data into a CDP, a customer data platform, and be able to receive the messaging from that campaign about something that they might be interested in based on what they came to us initially with, right? We also did that a lot, not only with in-store campaigns, but also online campaigns. And if we were having, for price sensitive customers or even loyalty customers, certain sales or initiatives on, say, these holistic health products, we would be able to upsell them by sending them a link to that sale, link to that place on the website, and be able to drive them and make sure they were aware that they could purchase these items on sale. So really, really helpful in getting that full scope of understanding the customer profile, the 360 view, and being able to use that for other purposes, not just reactionary.
Perfect. So customer data and the importance of that, I'm going to pull it back the other direction and ask Ashley to talk a little bit about, you touched on this a little bit before, but how important the human touch element is in caring for customers, and just a little bit about during COVID, how that was approached with even more empathy and more concern, and what the approach was that we took with customers to make sure that they knew they were being truly cared for.
Absolutely. So again, it was a very confusing time for everyone. There was a lot of tension and misinformation and fear. And, I think the biggest thing is getting with your team and saying, okay, we're all dealing with this on our own. We need to take that same empathy that we would have for our own family members, for our own friends, and convey that to our customers. And make sure that even when customers are frustrated and they're angry and, they are getting bombarded left, right, and center by media and social media and everywhere, all of this information, that we are kind of just a steady place where they can get correct information, clear information, not a lot of jargon. There's obviously a certain amount of very specific policy wording that we need to do when there's health information. But to make sure that we are using a special level of kindness. And I always pointed out kindness over being nice. Nice is kind of perfunctory. It's what you would get normally. It's like you're talking to a bot. It's nice. But going that extra step and being kind and, you know, making sure that we're addressing if somebody is saying, you know, my mother is sick and I'm stressed and I don't know what to do. Making sure that you're just taking a second to say, you know, we're very sorry to hear about your mother. We hope that she gets well, and not, there are certain moments where where we definitely want to upsell and provide information, but then there's also a time and a place to just be kind. And those engagements were the ones that I think bridged a gap for some people that made them feel comfortable to come to us when they had questions, and made them feel comfortable that we weren't just trying to yell information at them, I guess you would say, because a lot of customers are coming to us saying, I'm hearing this, I'm hearing that, this person says this, what does this mean? What should I do? And obviously we can't tell them what to do, but we can provide them with information, and we can be kind in such a way that it makes them feel comfortable asking questions. And then I think that the other part is dealing with misinformation. Yep. And being very careful, you know, being sure to relate to leadership when we're seeing a lot of misinformation and what we're seeing misinformation about, because that enabled Rite Aid to then maybe put out more messaging around these areas that are suffering from the most misinformation, and making sure that they're a leader in those areas and clarifying for customers. And I think that was really important, because what Nicole was saying about, you know, being a central hub for Rite Aid to help them understand what the customer's needs are. Just hearing their voices, also, you know, metrics are really important, but then also hearing the tone of the conversations, I think, is also an extra level that enables Rite Aid's messaging to be on point with meeting people where they are. And in a pandemic, I think that was when nobody understood what was going on. I think that was really important in the creation of a lot of our responses, and then also corporate response.
Yeah, and that the whole idea of having to deal with misinformation during this time was a new element to the program that we hadn't tackled before. And it really showcases how you can take really tricky situations, because a lot of what we did with this program was natural, and you could be very authentic and structure things as you went. But when it came to things like that, we had to be very cautious and careful. It's not unlike what other companies in highly regulated industries have to deal with when they're engaging with customers, but we were able to marry both of them and effectively hit off on all sides of things.
Speaking of sort of marrying the two, I would say, to Ashley's earlier point, and there were times that we literally went out and surprised and delighted customers who couldn't get out of their house at the time, and brought them things from Rite Aid that, you know, their children called and said, hey, my mother really needs this from Rite Aid. Can you guys arrange to get this to them, right? So we would do things like that. At the same time, we would really be focused on, you know, what are things that we need to solve for bottlenecks. So for example, we noticed that it was very hard for people to change their appointments, their vaccine appointments. And we actually went forward and were very proactive in getting access to the scheduling system so that we could change those appointments for those individuals when they were having trouble doing so. So I think it kind of goes both ways on that front.
Perfect. So any real world examples that you guys would like to share of where we really solved a problem via social? I know we threw up a couple of screen grabs that showed things that happened, but any best of that you guys would like to share?
One of the ones that was really interesting that not only solved a customer's problem, but also solved Rite Aid's problem was that, you know, as you know, I think there were a couple articles going around during the pandemic about which pharmacy had the fastest scheduling system, you know, the system that you wouldn't get blocked out of, you know, which one reserved times the fastest, et cetera. And I think, you know, one of the interesting thing was all these systems were being built in-house, right? And and so we were building ours in-house. And I think there was certainly, when you're in the weeds on it and you're going through the motions of how would a customer go through this and book their vaccines, I think you're not always seeing sort of an outside perspective. And there were a number of steps that were involved in sort of, you know, giving your name, your location, the date, time you wanted, in some ways, or in some instances, your insurance, et cetera. that there were so many steps because people hadn't gone through this situation before of booking vaccines, that there were almost one too many steps. And there was one instance where, or one set of situations for many individuals where they would get to a certain phase in the process, see all their information, their appointment being, the location, the time, everything is set in front of them, and think that they were done. And so they thought they were done. So they closed their laptop, they went in to go to their appointment, and they realized that no one had recollection of their appointment in store. And they were upset. And what we found out very, very quickly, within, I would say, 24 hours, because of the way that we were reporting out on all this data, is that there was a final step in the process that people were not hitting submit. And with that, we realized that the store then wasn't getting the confirmation on the appointment. Once we realized that, and we were able to reach out to those people and make sure that we could secure either the same or new appointments at the time. And once we were able to work with the web team and reconfigure a little bit of the path or the journey to booking, we resolved that issue immediately. And so that was extremely helpful, because these are all sort of new situations that no one's faced before.
Something so small that made such a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
Ashley, anything to add?
I think some of my favorite ones, and some of, I think, the most telling ones, were kind of smaller situations. And Nicole kind of talked about like this big situation that had a huge impact, but there were some examples for me where there was a particular one where there was an older woman who couldn't get into the store. One, she was scared to go in, but two, she was disabled and wasn't able to get into the store easily. It was going to take her a while. She was very upset. The whole situation was very hard for her, and she was very scared and wanted to get her vaccination. She contacted us, her son contacted us and was wondering what options there were. And we were able to work with the pharmacist in the store, and the pharmacist came out to her car and gave her vaccination at the car, and was able to actually bring her some items as well, and just kind of went out of his way to be kind, just go that extra step for her. And that meant so much to her family, because they were very worried about her going into the store and being possibly exposed. And this pharmacist just doing that one little thing made all the difference for her family. And we've had a lot of examples of that. And I think even with all of the issues of the pandemic and all of the moments of kindness that happened amongst all of the kind of horribleness that is the pandemic, we also had moments that were really fun. Like, we had moments with customers where we could kind of lighten the mood a little bit, and we could engage with them about candy or about ice cream or about numerous things that just took them out of it for a moment. And weren't quite so serious, and we could be free and a little bit very casual with our responses, and customers really responded to that. And those got actually a lot of attention, because I think people were looking for those moments of fun in amongst kind of all of the information and the fear and the confusion. We had some bright fun spots with customers that I think meant just as much.
Awesome. And what's been really exciting is that we've certainly moved into more of a new normal, if you will, but the learnings that we took away from this crazy time that were born out of a very well-developed program continue to shape and evolve the program that we have in place, and for other customers that we work with. So that's really all that we had today. I'm going to hand it back over to Jason for a quick wrap.
Yeah, I want to just point something out that in that last anecdote that Ashley just shared.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the most important thing in that whole situation about someone coming on out and providing an in-car vaccination. It's really the human touch. And somehow in all of this, as we talk about social customer support, or we talk about customer support in general, it's kind of hard to scale that. It's kind of hard to deliver that. And so that's something that really, whether you're working in healthcare, or you're working in retail, or you're working in other regulated industries, people are still looking for that. And as part of the new normal that Pam just cited, the human touch really needs to be a part of this. We have gotten to the point where we all have bought enough tools and we all have different ways through, whether it's MarTech or FinTech or whatever tech we use to create, a back room, but people want a human aspect to it. And just again, this scenario with Rite Aid, or even if you're a hospital or you're a bank or you're another type of retailer, people don't really care which channel they're going in which channel they're posting to. Their expectation is whether they're hitting you on Twitter or they're hitting you on Facebook or they're hitting you on TikTok or they're leaving something on a ratings and review site. They're not really differentiating that the way you, as part of the client side, may be differentiating that. And folks are just looking for that care. So if I can just wrap this up, more and more programs are, you need to emphasize social as a part of a support program. You really can't look at it as partitioned. So social needs to be a part of it. As you do that, you need to move at the speed of social. I mean, Pam used that expression before. If you're going to have these properties up, if you're going to use Messenger as a part of your Facebook pages, you need to make sure that your message on Messenger isn't someone will get back to you in the next 12 hours. It's got to be a little bit more to the user expectation rather than to the client expectation. So, you need to move at that speed. And frankly, as you increase that, you need to create programs that are going to scale. One of the things that Nicole addressed is, there was an in-house team, but there was a recognition that an in-house team could only take something so far. So looking at someone who can provide the service and the scale to the process was incredibly important. So this is where I drop in the plug. We here at LiveWorld can help you with that. We can help you create it. We can help you manage it. We can help you learn from it. And most importantly, we can help you succeed from a social customer support program. So with that, and being sensitive of time, and there are a lot of other things that we can cover, and we hope that we can cover those things with you. Thank you very much for joining us today. And my contact information is on the screen. Kind of simple, jason@liveworld.com. Thank you very much, and have a great remainder of your day. Thank you.